My name is Beth Wheeler-Fox, and I'm the original director of the Westbank Community Libraries. And I retired after 29 years in August of 2012. Two of my favorite people in the world are Doris Walcott and Eleanor Drake, who were just incredible individuals who cared a great deal about their community. Between them, they had called a meeting to gather people in the community and see if they'd be interested in starting a library. And were advised you absolutely can't have a community library if you don't have a form of funding. But being the people they were, they said, yes, we can. And they made it happen. They were just amazing people. The first things they did is they started a book drive. And the Eanes school librarians, including Sarah Widener and Patricia Newton, who were still involved in the library, were two of the librarians, and they had a major book drive. Collected books, and perhaps 20 librarians sorted these piles and piles and piles of books. I'm pretty sure I'm the only person who didn't have a job when they decided they wanted to hire a librarian, so they hired me as a part-time librarian. Doris was one of those people who believed absolutely. She would look at people and say, you need to do this. And people would say, okay. and Eleanor was the kind of sort of behind the scenes person who would always be there to do any type of job that needed to be done. And that included, Eleanor was our first volunteer coordinator, a position that today Flo holds. As we started the library, they had by then hired me. Again, let me reinforce, I'm pretty sure I'm the only one of the 20 librarians who sorted books who didn't have a job. And I did have some public library experience, which was unusual. Most of the other people did not. Doris and Eleanor had absolute confidence that I could do anything, which was probably not true. It was a very steep learning curve to be hired and to immediately decide what furniture to purchase for a library. We also had probably 50,000, 60,000 books that had been donated that needed to be gone through once again and decide if we wanted to keep them, and they needed to be processed and cataloged. And Doris and Eleanor were perfectly willing to do whatever I asked them to do. So we sat at long tables and we processed books. And that was in the olden days when you still typed catalog cards. So Eleanor typed thousands of catalog cards. They would cover books. They brought in everybody they could think of. So the first week I was there, I probably had 30 volunteers. And by the end of that month, I had 60 volunteers who came in every week. And a number of them are still involved in the library, which is just amazing. It's 30 years they're still involved in the library. It was, it's hard to explain what it's like to be the only employee. In a way, I always felt like I had this amazing crew of volunteers who were incredibly supportive, as was the board. So I never felt alone as much as I felt like I was supposed to know certain things. I was supposed to know how to order books. When you're fresh out of library school, you don't know how to order books. I was supposed to purchase library shelving. How do you know what to purchase? So that was challenging, and it was part of what I felt like was 30 years of challenge at the library, which is part of what kept it so interesting and so fun, because you never could just rest on your laurels. I was not, I had moved here just as they were asking for librarians to help sort these books from the big book collection. Um, so the only interview process was they said, we'd like you to apply for the job. And so I gave them a resume and they said, you're hired. So that was the end of that very selective process I went through. I was hired as the librarian, and within a few months they changed it to the head librarian. And then they began to call me the library director. And at one meeting, somebody referred to me as the CEO of the library, at which time I was laughing at him, saying if I just had one employee, this would make sense. So, yeah, there was no money. I was only part-time. You know, it was very, very little money. The original library building was in a bank building, 1,000 square feet, which is really tiny. So we sort of expanded out the door into the hallway, and there was an unused room behind us, and that became our used book sale room. And even way back then, Jeannie Farron was taking care of our donated books for our book sales. The day we opened, there was probably, I don't really remember, 500, maybe 1,000 people who came to the grand opening party, which was just stunning to me. But Doris and Eleanor knew that would happen. So they were absolutely confident that everyone would come for this grand opening. Well, the pros were we had absolutely no money. So we were going to create a 501c3, but I don't believe it had been created at that point. And the fact that they would allow us to have this space was really due to people like Doris and Eleanor again, who could just look you in the eye and say, our community needs this, and what are you going to do to help? The cons were it was very small. It was really, really tiny. And you had to climb 2 flights of stairs to get to the building. And in fact, one of my goofier memories is the day that all of the shelving was delivered. Thousands and thousands of pounds of shelving arrived, and I had no idea there was a difference between a delivery that was an inside delivery and a truck delivery. So the man arrived about 6 o'clock at night, and fortunately for me, he stayed and helped me carry those thousands and thousands of pounds of shelving. We had an elevator, but it was a huge mess, and there they were all stacked in the hallway waiting for us to do something with. Oh, this is the grand opening of the library in the Texas Commerce Bank building. And I see Flo Macklin with her back to us checking out books. And I see Sue Klein, who was later one of the presidents of the board. And I see J.J. Inks, who was another president at a different point in our life. We had balloons. It was a very exciting event.